My name is Dustin Betts. I'm the content editor at the Founder Institute, and I'm here today with Renzo Zagni. He's the founder of Intelenz, an FI Silicon Valley and Founder Institute select portfolio company that is applying AI to practical process automation. Renzo Zagni, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Dustin. Thanks for having me.
So before we dive into your startup Intelenz, can you tell us a little bit, about yourself, your personal story? What were the experiences, whether they were professional or personal, that led you to founding this process automation company?
Well, throughout my career, if I can describe my passion with one statement, is to resolve complex problems with technology. During my tenure at Oracle, I was passionate about this. I encountered a lot of problems that Oracle didn't know they have, that customers didn't know they have, and I was able to quickly resolve those problems, and those solutions resulted in products that were shipped to customers. Some other resulted in patents or products that Oracle adopted internally that were used by thousands of users. So that's what prompted me to say, if I can resolve all these problems for Oracle, I can perhaps do it for my own company. I always have the dream to start my own business. And
yeah, awesome. That's really cool. I know that you had industry background at Oracle, before starting the venture. So cool to see you coming out of that space. I know because I'm somewhat familiar with your business, as a Founder Institute portfolio company, that Intelenz is machine learning to facilitate and automate business processes and controls. But let's kind of hear it straight from you, the founder. Please give us your short pitch for anybody who's never heard of you before. What is Intelenz?
Yeah, Intelenz is a startup that is developing a machine learning-based process automation software and robotic process automation software for large enterprises. That's very much in a nutshell. Our approach is a no-code approach. Our target customer or target end user is a business person, somebody that doesn't have the knowledge of the technology, the knowledge of coding, but is facing the problem every day. So we're giving them a solution that allow them to, in minutes, automate their day-to-day processes.
Perfect. And it leads really well into the next question that I want to ask you, which is, for those who are unfamiliar with the technology or never heard the term, process automation, could you share for us some examples of that end user you talked about, how process automation could be deployed for different use cases?
Well, there are certainly one of the main symptoms that you see when there is lack of automation is Excel spreadsheets. There are a lot of business people, that's the number one tool that they use to keep track of data, that keep track of tasks. So what we're doing is helping them automate those activities, whether it's copy and paste between applications, whether it's sending an email reminder to a customer that is late to pay some bills, whether it's automating a newsletter, or sending a document to DocuSign to be sent to another customer to be signed. So that's where we're looking into what are these activities, what we call the swivel chair activities. Every time you have to swivel the chair to pass some information to somebody else, how we can automate that in an elegant way.
Perfect. I like that the swivel chair analogy. That makes sense. And obviously a lot of businesses who are who are stuck in the spreadsheet mode can become much more efficient in so many different ways. I want to ask you next about your intellectual property. I only recently learned about your U.S. patent filing. Congratulations. I was wondering if you could share with founders about some of the biggest challenges in the patenting process from your perspective. What was challenging about it? I guess you have some background in filing IP from Oracle as well, but what is that really like going through that with the USPTO?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. And the main challenge is the US Patent Officer, the agent that is going to review and approve your patent. And they have a way of going about this. And for that it's like legal language, whether the patent has defined in a way that it not only expresses intellectual property, but expresses in a way that can communicate with the patent officer. So in a nutshell, the best thing is get a lawyer, a patent lawyer that has done that before and that can help you translate your intellectual property, which is probably something very technical, into a legal language that can then be not only submitted, but more often than not, the agent pushes back. And you have to defend that patent. And to defend that patent, you have to work with a lawyer, because the lawyer doesn't know about the technology, but he knows how to respond to the US Patent Office. So this is a little bit of a back and forth. And the last thing is it's expensive, unfortunately.
Yeah. So founders should be prepared for that, and that's like a big trade-off. It's like you really want to work with the attorney who can really like help shepherd you through and make sure that you know what you're doing when you work with that patent officer, but just be prepared that there's a cost associated with that. So
correct. And if the patent is sound, sometimes even the lawyer can advise you on to whether or not the patent will have the intellectual property will have merit in front of the agent. Because even if you do an investment of $10,000, $15,000 for a patent and the patent is awarded, well, that's a tremendous boost to the credibility of the company and also to the valuation of the company. So it's well paid off.
Yeah, having a patent is huge. I mean, in terms of an asset that your business holds, yeah, it just makes it so much more tangible. Yeah, congratulations again. That's it's really cool.
Yeah, and it's also something that makes the team proud, right? Hey, we did all this, and look at this, we receive a patent. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. One next question I want to ask you about is sort of about product features. And you mentioned this really briefly. I think it's really great that Intelenz is a no-code solution, because I'm frankly like a non-technical person, I guess, in that respect. And so tell us a little bit about your thinking. No-code is a very like hot topic right now among just tech and media. So you're thinking in terms of designing a product for this no-code user deployability. What went into that design process?
Yeah, it is. It was very interesting. When I worked at Oracle, I was the head of one IT organizations, and I work with the line of businesses in all the projects that they need to do for to automating and improving the process, digitalization. And honestly, we have much more projects than resources to work on those. So we couldn't serve all our business units the way that we wanted. And I think that's a common denominator in a lot of companies. So what I realized is that what the business user needs to do is not that complex when it comes to developing that solution, but there were no tools for them to be able to point and click, drag and drop, and pretty much digitalize the whole process. And that's what we did. 3 years ago, we started with that vision in mind and say, if a user is going to touch the keyboard, it's going to be because he wants to put a label on something, or it's going to write a note. I don't want any single line of code to be in the system. So that was a premise from the get-go. We use artificial intelligence, machine learning for that, and also, a lot of sweat and tears to ensure that we develop a beautiful and elegant platform that anybody can use, with an hour on training.
Perfect. And I don't know if there's any other kind of features that you want to highlight about the product specifically, but because my next kind of question sort of goes into, again, this use case for somebody who is non-technical.
Yeah, we have several use cases. So for example, with a large agricultural company here in California, they have a packing plant. And for them, what was important is to ensure that there was a coordination between the different teams or the different product lines in the company. And it was not just a matter of saving costs or improving operational efficiencies, but for them, it was a liability issue. It was a risk issue, because they say, if we pack the wrong product with the wrong label, and we say this product has no peanuts, for example, and it does contain peanuts, then the liabilities for the company is at the millions of dollars. So we help them address that and significantly reduce that risk. A company in Malaysia, Petronas, we did a pilot with them, and what they needed to do is to be able to coordinate and orchestrate activities for oil drilling and platforms in the offshore. So we built that solution. We prove how they can use that solution to very quickly orchestrate and monitor those activities. And once again, for them, certainly cost saving was a big factor, but risk management was another very, very important factor. So that's kind of examples from a financial point of view, accounts receivables, being able to send automated and personalized reminders to the customer, the company customer, say, your bill is past due, or it's going to be past due in this amount of days, and here are all the details, what you need to do to pay. Being able to automate that is certainly a huge value to the enterprise.
Yeah, perfect. No, these real world examples are absolutely perfect, because it leads really well sort of into the next question that I want to ask you, which is to ask you to go out on a limb and predict the future, which I like to put people in that position. So, what do you envision for the future of this digital process automation space over the next 5 years in the industries that are going to adopt it, basically?
Well, it's what I've seen is that there is a big push. A lot of big companies are investing in this space in different areas, right? This robotic process automation, digital process automation, business process management is very large. Is per Gartner, the market is going to double by 2025. It's going to be like a $14 to $15 billion opportunity. But I do feel that this is going to be ubiquitous in any companies that, it's going to be as ubiquitous as Excel spreadsheet, as using emails to communicate with customers. And being able to use artificial intelligence to, for example, parse an email and read that email and understand that email, and based on that email, kick out a process that is going to send the right information to a customer. That is going to be tremendously valuable. And I think that's the direction that we're going. Yeah, perfect. I agree. I mean, I think it's going to, touch so many different industries that it's hard to imagine where it wouldn't have an impact. So perfect. Next question I want to ask you, you've obviously done a huge amount of work to build Intelenz to where it is today. What are some of the biggest challenges that you've overcome as a founder in terms of building this company? Well, there's so many challenges. Building a startup is really was one of the hardest things that I have done in my career. I have to admit that. But I think the biggest challenge when you have some innovative technologies is sometimes connect the solution to the problem, and being able to help your potential customers make that connection in their mind. Sometimes when we have this solution, we have this vision, but to be able to articulate this vision in a way that resonates to the customer sometimes can be very hard. The more complex the technology, the most complex the problem that you're trying to solve, it becomes harder. And as a person on a technical background, I like to explain things in technical terms, but my end users are non-technical. So I have to kind of do this mind shift and start speaking in the language. And I think that's very important, speaking the language that your customer understands. Perfect. No, I think that that makes a lot of sense, specifically for people like yourself who are coming from a more technical background, who think in product terms. To translate, that makes a ton of sense. Next question is kind of related. What advice would you offer to an early stage, or maybe even just an aspiring entrepreneur who's just getting started, something you wish you had known a couple of years back when you were first getting started? Well, that's a very good question. The first advice is don't develop, assuming that this is a technology startup, of course, don't type a single line of code until you're very clear as to what your value proposition is going to be and that you have found product market fit. And Perfect. Even if it means that, just build some mock-ups, pages, and print it out and show it to potential customers and say, this is how it's going to do, this is the problem that we're going to resolve, and get that feedback from customers before you start, investing some cash in the venture.
I think that's great advice because it's very, very applicable to very, very many different companies who kind of get ahead of themselves to design a solution before they've really pinpointed the problem. So I think that's
Correct.
great advice. Awesome. Final question is, to just give us an update on, where is Intelenz headed next? Do you have any news or other updates to share with the FI community or any asks for the audience who might be watching?
Well, yes, thank you for that opportunity. We just signed our first customers. We've been running some pilots with customers on different, representing different industries. We signed our first customers 2 weeks ago. It's a company representing oil and gas. And we are also releasing our version 2.0 of the software. And it has a lot of features. And I will invite anyone listening to this live stream that if they are interested in piloting our product and giving us some feedback, I'll be more than happy to connect and help them out resolve some of their complex business problems.
Perfect. And we have the URL here down there at intelenz.com. So if you're watching, you can click and go over and check it out. And congrats also on closing those first customers. That's always a really big deal. This has been really interesting for me, learning a bit about AI and how process automation is changing in our digital world. And I know we're all at the Founder Institute really looking forward to keeping up with Intelenz and where you're headed next. Renzo Zagni, thank you again for joining us today.
Dustin, thank you very much, and thanks to Founders Institute for this opportunity.